Hello, my name is Stephen Thomas, and I'd like to talk about a current craze which is sweeping prophecy hobbyists in the religious community. And it's about why blood moons are not eclipses, but are actually from debris from space. Now, the term blood moon is not an astronomical term, but we in the religious community, especially those people interested in end-time prophecy, associate the moon turning to blood or red with the end time. And it refers to prophecies such as in Joel 2, such as in Matthew 24 and Luke 21, and in Revelation. So I would like to go through the two options. Either the moon is turned red due to an eclipse, and we know that when we have a lunar eclipse, when in fact you get the sun, the earth, and the moon, and the earth's shadow falls on the moon, and we get refraction of the sun's light, which turns the moon red. So that's the moon turns red due to refraction. But that occurs when the moon is full, and it occurs, and the Jewish feasts occur on full moons, Passover and Sukkot. So it is almost not unusual that at Jewish feasts, when the moon is full, eclipses happen. And eclipses have happened hundreds and thousands of times throughout the ages and in human history. And in fact, if you have to look up at eclipses in Israel, you'll see that they occur every year. So there's nothing special about an eclipse. So it's very hard to see how an eclipse can be a sign of the end time, since they've been going along for a long time. Now, we could say a tetrad of eclipses that occur on the Jewish feasts is a little bit more exceptional, that there may have been a certain number of these that occurred throughout history. I think it was 60-something since the first century, and 8 of these have occurred on Jewish feast days, that where you get Passover and Sukkot, and then the next year Passover and Sukkot, which makes up a tetrad of consecutive, on the feast, eclipses of the moon. Now, the Bible doesn't say anything about tetrads. It doesn't even, in fact, say anything about eclipses of the moon as far as it being a sign of the end time. It's just assumed, or in a popular best-selling book now, recently, it's assumed that this is an eclipse of the moon that they're referring to. But in fact, if you look at all the times in the Bible when blood moons are spoken about, you will always find it's associated with the sun turning black, which cannot occur when the moon is full. It can only occur at a new moon. So these are at least events that have to, if they were eclipses, 15 days apart. But it's also associated with the stars falling from heaven. In Joel, in Matthew 24, in Luke 21, and in Revelation, the main places where blood moons are spoken about, we have not only the moon turning red, but we have the sun turning black, and we have stars falling from heaven. So bear all of that in mind, and let's have a look at the book of Revelation. So I say that very clearly the Bible tells you in Revelation that in the end time there's going to be almost like a mass extinction, and Christ is going to come with the clouds of heaven. So this is at the return of Christ. We have a mass extinction. We have a mass dying out of both man and animals, the sea, plants, etc. So there's a mass extinction, but what causes this mass extinction? The same thing that has caused many mass extinctions: debris falling from space. And in fact, the Bible's very clear in Revelation that it is debris falling from space. Now let's prove this. There are in Revelation 7 seals. The 7th seal is divided into 7 trumpets. The 7 trumpets are divided into 7 vials. Now I've written the ones that matter here, the ones that all talk about debris falling from space, so that we can see there are a few that aren't there about other things. Seals 1 for the horsemen of the apocalypse in Matthew 24. No, they're war, famine, pestilence, and false religion. Those are nothing to do with debris from space. So those are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. But then comes the 5th one, which is martyrdom. The saints are killed. Following martyrdom, in Revelation chapter 6, it talks about the sun turning black, the moon turns to blood, and the stars fall, and heaven departed as a scroll. Do you see that it's talking about debris falling from space? What will turn the sun black? Well, if you've ever been in a fire where the trees and everything are burning, when the sky gets full of soot and carbon particles, it turns the sky red. We've seen that when you get the sky turning red due to a forest fire or a veld fire or some sort of fire. So the sun turns black and the moon turns red at the same time, and stars fall from heaven. So what is causing the air to be sooty or full of stuff? It appears to be stuff, stars, meteorites, comets, whatever. We don't know, because it says Christ comes with the clouds of heaven. He's coming with debris from space. That is what he's mustering and using to punish the earth. Then it says here that men hide in caves. That's in Revelation 6:12, verse 16. Why would you hide in a cave? Not from an eclipse. If the only safe place to be, if there's meteorites or stuff falling from heaven, is in a cave. Your house is not going to stand up. Your big office block is not going to stand up with space debris falling on the earth. If there was a comet heading for Earth, you would head for a cave. So that is why men hide in caves and nowhere else will actually do, or in dens of the mountain or in the rocks of the mountain. If you're against the mountain, you could perhaps hide on the other side away from which the meteorite particles are falling. But now, look, that's not all. So then it talks about, both in Matthew 24, at this time, Christ sends his angels, gathers his saints, raptures them from the earth. In Revelation chapter 7, it talks about how he sends his angels, and he seals his saints. So all the rest of this to do with space debris has nothing to do with his saints. His saints are removed from earth, but now he's ready to punish the unbelievers left on earth. Let's have a look. The first trumpet is hail and fire. That's debris from heaven. The Bible has talked about times when fire and hail. It's talking about combustible material, hydrocarbons falling from space, like coal, like some sort of hydrocarbon, perhaps a fluid, and that is fire and brimstone, such as in Sodom. It is talking about stuff falling from the heavens, though. And it obviously is not coming from a normal natural clouds. The second trumpet is burning mountain fell into the sea, and a third part of the sea turned to blood. A burning mountain is debris from space. So that is debris from space, debris from space. The third trumpet, and you can read about it yourself in Revelation chapter 8, is a star falls on the fresh waters, and that star is called in the Bible wormwood, and it turns the waters to bitter. So that is debris from space. It is some rock, some burning mountain that falls onto the freshwater supplies and turns them to undrinkable. But it's again debris from space. Then the fourth trumpet, 1/3 of the sun, moon, and stars are darkened. Now that's obviously at the same time. And there you again see sun, moon, and stars mentioned. So something is preventing you seeing 1/3 of the sun, moon, and stars. It's like 1/3 of the light has been diminished by all this dust. And you can imagine if stuff is falling down to earth, you get a nuclear winter. And that's exactly what you'd see. And you'd see the sun through like particulated with particles in the air. You'd see it like sackcloth, as the Bible talks about. It wouldn't be. And you'd see the moon would be very red due to those particles. And again, you get the stars would be darkened. Then trumpets 5 and 6 have nothing to do with debris from space, more to do with demons. And then we come to the vials. Now the 7th trumpet is divided into 7 vials. The first vial is something nothing to do with the heavenly debris, but the second and third talks about how the seas turn to blood. In the third vial, how all the fresh water, all the seas turn to blood. It all becomes dead, and the fresh water all becomes undrinkable, whereas here it was 1/3 was undrinkable. But now if we look at the pattern here, it was a burning mountain, and it was stars, it was debris from space. What is going to turn all the seawater and the fresh water undrinkable if it's not debris from space? unless it's the stuff that fell on the earth that has now found its way through the rivers into the oceans, and maybe all of the debris from space has now poisoned the sea and turned it into a red tide, or it's created conditions which are anaerobic and no life can survive in it and nothing can drink it. Then the fourth vial, the sun turns scorching hot. How that occurs, we don't know, but it's something to do with the heavens again. It's not, the sun becomes scorching hot. Anyway, the sun turns to hot, and then if we come to the seventh vial, it talks about how hail fell from heaven. The hail, about a talent, huge, supernaturally big talents of hail fall from heaven again. Well, this could be just like normal rain or hail, or it could be, again, water from space. So again, hail from heaven, supernaturally big, huge chunks, and it just pounds on all the buildings and it flattens everything so that Christ doesn't have to send in the wrecking teams when he has to rebuild for the millennium. We could say a tetrad means something significant is going to happen to Israel. We cannot invent that. That's a superstition. There's nothing in the Bible that says anything about tetrads. So in fact, what we've done is we've created our own thumbsuck superstition that every time there's a tetrad, something has to happen to Israel, even though in the past, out of all the tetrads, meaning the consecutive lunar eclipses that have happened to Israel, very few significant events have ever occurred in the history of Israel. And now to create a new superstition about a tetrad somehow affecting Israel. I'd like to read to you now from Matthew 24, where it talks about the blood moons. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. The heavens shaken. And it's talking about after their martyrdom, after the tribulation of those days, when it talks about how people are going to be persecuted. There's this end time persecution of the saints, and through that persecution the gospel is preached in all the world for a witness to the whole world. That is specifically Revelation chapter 6, the fifth seal, martyrdom of the saints. Then comes what Matthew 24 is talking about. After the tribulation of those days shall the sun be dark, and the moon shall not give a light, the stars shall fall from heaven. See how all of them are mentioned together. That cannot be a lunar eclipse, because only the moon is darkened at that stage, at any particular lunar eclipse. But a solar eclipse can only occur 15 days later. Now, have another look at Luke, where a similar thing is spoken about. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. It's talking about a disaster that's happening to the earth, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Again, talking about heaven. It's almost like it says the heaven is shaken, and figs, like the fig tree, is shaken, and things fall onto the earth. So this is talking about the punishment due to a mass extinction caused by debris from space, which Christ brings with him at his second coming. And he uses this debris from space to destroy the earth, and in the process it turns the moon to blood, and it turns the sun dark, and the stars fall, and the powers of the heaven, etc., are shaken. It is debris from space, just as has occurred in many, looking past Earth's history, mass extinctions that have wiped out all the plants and animals. The end time is nothing more than another mass extinction, and God has predicted it, just like the flood was a mass extinction. God has predicted that he will use debris from space, which he brings with him, to punish the earth, turn the waters to blood, turn the drinking water to undrinkable, etc. So, let's not be caught up with the excitement of a new superstition about tetrads, of which the Bible speaks nothing.